Great. How are you?
Yeah, good. Did you get away this weekend?
I did, yeah. Just got back last night, actually. So we were out in Virginia, wine country and horse country too. I get that a lot of my wife loves all that equestrian stuff. So it was pretty neat. Middleburg, Virginia, cool little town out there. So we got out of town and just made it back last night. Flew from DC to San Francisco and about to pull into Levi's now for the second half of the season.
And it's installation day and it's time to go. But the big news, obviously, when we were all away last week, Christian McCaffrey stayed here with the mind to work out with the guys that are rehabbing and young guys as well. So I know you'll be there when Kyle talks at 12:40, and the first thing will be, what's his availability for practice, a full goal, limited, or but just your thoughts about the return of McCaffrey. We've been talking about it since he, was a 90-minute scratch right before the opener against the Jets. They're number two in the NFL in total offense, over 412 yards a game. They're balanced. They're fourth in rushing and fourth in passing, but yet they're only sixth in scoring at 26.3 points a game, and a lot of it's been the red zone. So what do you think the immediate impact will be getting Christian back, and what will it be over time?
Well, yeah, it's been a good offense, but last year it was a historically great offense. And I think that the obvious difference is that Christian McCaffrey hasn't been there. And I think that stat that you just highlighted, second in yards, sixth in points, shows the disconnect. And they haven't been as great on third down, and they definitely haven't been good in the red zone. And those are two spots where Christian McCaffrey is such an adaptable weapon. He can really help in those two spots. He is not just one of the best running backs, if not the best pure running back in the league. We saw him win the rushing title last year. He's also a massive, massive positive impact on the 49ers pass game. And the fact that he can threaten to do both whenever they break the huddle and line up is what compromises opposing defenses in a way that totally transforms the 49ers offense. I mean, the best stat that I have for you as far as McCaffrey's impact goes is that Brock Purdy's tight window throw rate this year, the amount of times he's had to throw into a tight window, is the second highest in the NFL, middle of the pack last year. So he's dealing with, and this was even when they had Brandon Ayuk before the ACL tear. Brock Purdy is just dealing with a lot less space in the pass game. And Kyle Shanahan talks about it a lot. You compare Christian McCaffrey to Steph Curry in that he creates gravity. Even when he doesn't have the football, there is defensive attention that has to be paid to Christian McCaffrey that creates space for other players. And I think that space is something that's extremely valuable and much more rare in the red zone. And then you just look at the way that Christian McCaffrey runs the football. And Jordan Mason's third in the NFL in rushing right now. I think he's done a great job as the 49ers backup running back. But McCaffrey, it just hits the hole different. He sees lanes differently than really anybody else in the league. So it can help the 49ers from that perspective as well, because even though that they're near the top of the league in rushing yardage, they're down 20s when it comes to success running the football in obvious short yardage running situations. And they're not good at running in the red zone. This is all stuff that Christian McCaffrey can help them improve. And I think the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in how the 49ers performed last year, and that was a historically good offense.
Dave Lombardi joining us, looking ahead to the second half for the 49ers as they're just off their bye and they take on the Bucs this weekend at Lombardi himself. And make sure you're reading him in the SF Standard. As a whole, just adding McCaffrey, getting Jennings back. I know Ayuk's gone, but Debo, hopefully Pearsall continues to get going. I think offensively they're going to score 30 to 35. I really have no issues offensively. Do you think they just offensively just jump back to where they where they're just one of the most proficient offenses in the league?
Again, they were the most proficient offense in the league last year. When I did all my advanced numbers breakdowns, this unit rivaled the greatest show on turf. So that's why I say they're historically good. I don't think it'll be a snap of the finger. They're back to that every single week, but I think that they hope that it develops into that by the postseason when it really matters. Ricky Pearsall is a great name to bring up because obviously they do have to pick up the slack after the loss of Brandon Ayuk. And I thought that one of the most promising plays of the season came against the Cowboys when Purdy on third down threw the deep out to Ricky Pearsall, and that football was in the air a good 2 seconds before Ricky turned around. That was, and I think George Kittle was talking about it on a podcast this week. It was almost like Purdy was forcing the trust to build between the two because they hadn't had a lot of reps together. And to put a football out there in that situation, if Ricky does something wrong, that's going to be a pick six the other way. If Ricky Pearsall's timing is off, if he's not looking for the football when he's supposed to be. But Brock Purdy recognized that this goes back to the low separation rate that the 49ers have had without Christian McCaffrey. He recognized that he needed to make a timing throw to throw Ricky Pearsall open. And even though they hadn't had all those reps together, he trusted that Ricky Pearsall would be in the right place at the right time. And he was. And, it just shows you that rapport can be built on the fly with good players. And I think Ricky Pearsall's shown himself to be a good player. We obviously know Brock Purdy's already a great quarterback. And if he can continue to build that rapport, not just with Pearsall, but also with Jacob Cowing and, with just guys in different roles, we'll see what role Juwan Jennings has now when he comes back. He's obviously already shown that he's capable of delivering more than just a third wide receiver. But if he finds himself on the same page in the same way that somebody like Ricky Pearsall has been starting to find himself on the same page with Brock Purdy, yes, this offense can turbocharge its way to 30-plus points a game.
And, David, that was only Ricky Pearsall's second game in the NFL, and I haven't seen Brock trust someone while the receiver was still on the stem of his route. He threw it before he broke on the out. It reminded me of Brandon Ayuk over and over again last year. So with Ayuk gone for the year, and Jennings is a good man beater. He can beat man coverage, and Ricky can. Just give me the numbers overall on the volume of man coverage the Niners have seen this year versus last year. And I think everybody's piggybacking on what Steve Spagnuolo did in the Super Bowl last year, but he had great cover corners. There have been teams that, like Arizona, frankly, I didn't think had the corners to do it, and they manned the Niners. So they're going to have to beat man. And then having McCaffrey back, you don't want to man Christian McCaffrey. So if he goes out in the slot, maybe they play him differently where he lines up in the backfield. Maybe you could play like a box and one or a triangle and two and double him in and out and man everybody. So just having McCaffrey back to some degree in certain situations, will that force the opponents to get out of man and play more zone?
I think that the rushing efficiency alone, the boost in that you get from Christian McCaffrey will goad teams into more zone coverage. The delineation that you talk about, Brock Purdy has been by far the NFL's most efficient quarterback against zone coverage ever since he entered the league in 2022. And he's at or near the top again this year. But the efficiency against man coverage has been only average this season. Before it was above average, and I think that McCaffrey is an answer to a lot of this puzzle. In general, when you're running the football well, teams have to get out of man coverage and they have to play zone just to dedicate those resources to the run to keep the defenders and their hips squared toward the runner and the line of scrimmage. So it all ties together. If you're able to run the ball efficiently, and I don't think that the 49ers, even though they've racked up a lot of yardage, I don't think it's been great efficiency for the 49ers. If you can do that, you can force teams into that zone coverage, and then you try to pick them apart with the pass game. That's just how it works in general. It's obviously not that simple. So I think that this just goes back to what I first talked about, Christian McCaffrey's multifaceted impact on this offense in both the run game and the pass game, and then the threat to do either when he lines up there because he is such an adaptable weapon. That can give the 49ers A, numbers advantage, and B, a space advantage, because they definitely haven't had that space advantage. The separation numbers have been too low for the 49ers this season. And I think that McCaffrey's been that missing piece.
David Lombardi's joining us talking about the second half of the 49ers take on the Bucs this Sunday right here on the Sports Leader. Defensively, that's where I get a little bit nervous. I think, like you said, I think they're going to score 30-35. It's too bad that Ayuk is gone, but they have the offensive weapons. Defensively, they've struggled up to their standard for a while. So what do you see for the defense in the second half?
They need to be better against the run. That's statistically the worst part of the entire operation for the 49ers outside of special teams, although we should say that they ended the first half on a great note on special teams. They outperformed Dallas, who was ranked number 1 on special teams. But the second biggest statistical weakness on this team has been the run defense. ranked number 23 in efficiency. I think that they've needed a little more heft on the inside, just a little bit more depth on the inside. That's why they made the trade that we expected them to, not for Khalil Davis in particular, but we did expect the 49ers to make a rotational addition to the D-line room, especially at defensive tackle, and that's what they did when they brought Khalil Davis in for the 7th-round pick in 2026 from the Houston Texans. So they're going to hope that's fortified just numbers-wise on the inside. They're going to hope that Dre Greenlaw returns at some point over the course of the back half of the season to help what I think has been another, at times, glaring weakness, and that is the linebacker position beyond Fred Warner. I will say that this pass defense has been the best that they've had since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. They actually ranked number 2 in the entire NFL in pass defense efficiency. They've got a loaded cornerback room. The safeties are playing a lot better. Malik Mustafa has been awesome for the 49ers. And I think that Jair Brown has settled in and is playing a lot better than he was over the first couple of games. Now Tashawn Gibson, who's been re-signed to the practice squad, should give the 49ers just more insulation at a position where depth has been sketchy at best, especially with Talanoa Ufanga back on injured reserve. So that puts all the focus on the run defense, which is, again, it ranks number 23, and the pass defense is ranked number 2 in efficiency. If you can elevate that run defense to just mediocrity, just somewhere around 14, right? 13 to 14, then I think that the 49ers pass rush, which hasn't been bad by any stretch, but I think that pass rush can go from good to great if they can start snuffing out the run and setting themselves up into better down and distance. They always say stop the run to have some fun, and I think that's got to be the focus for the 49ers defensively moving into the back half.
And on the other side, and you were talking about the offense, and, J.P. Mason's had a great early year. We'll see about the shoulder coming off the bye, and if he's a little better, Garendo in a couple of big games, Seattle and obviously the Dallas game. But they haven't been able to run the ball inside the low red zone. Situationally, they have not been good. One area of the football team that I know you were concerned with going back before the season started was Jake Brendel in center. And, Vita Vea is going to be over his head all day on Sunday. And that guy is just a monster, right? The size and athleticism and his feet, it's just hard to believe a guy that big is that mobile. So we'll watch that matchup. How do you think Jake has done overall? I mean, Pooney's played well. Colton's played better. You got Banks and Trent. Everybody's got eyes on 64, Jake Brendel. And the reason I bring it up, all these guys are coming back. One guy that's coming back we haven't talked about is John Feliciano, who played great at right guard last year until he got hurt in the Super Bowl. But he started the year before with the New York Giants. He started every single game, including a playoff game, at center. What do you think Feliciano's return means, and how has Jake played to you?
I think that Jake Brendel's worst 2 games were the first 2 games. I think that he was downright bad, especially against Minnesota. That was ugly. I think he's been a lot better since then, and I think that the way that the 49ers are talking about their offensive line and about Feliciano's potential return to the 53-man roster, he's had his practice window activated this week. I think that that's reflective of Jake Brendel's improving play. They haven't talked about Feliciano as a potential plug-and-play starter. They've talked about him as a very valuable 6th man that can fill in virtually at any of the interior offensive line positions. Now, last year, that naturally turned into Feliciano taking over at right guard. But I think it's important for people to realize how much better the 49ers have been on the right side of the offensive line this year than last year. I run some of the pass blocking efficiency numbers, and then I assign a percentile score to them to see where the 49ers offensive linemen rank relative to other players at their respective positions. Last year, Spencer Burford was in the 2nd percentile of pass blocking efficiency of guards. That means that 98% of guards in the league scored better in pass blocking than him. So it's easy to see why the 49ers made a change to Feliciano at right guard. At right tackle, Colton McKivitz last year was in the 4th percentile. This season, Dominic Pooney as a rookie is in the 60th percentile, so he's an above average performer immediately. And Colton McKivitz has raised his game to the 34th. So he's better than a third of the tackles in the league. I think that having Dominic Pooney next to him instead of Spencer Burford has really helped Colton McKivitz on the right side. Plus, he's made that second-year starter stride. So anyway, Jake Brendel's actually scored above average in the pass blocking efficiency when he was way below average over the first 2 weeks. He is now, I think, somewhere in the 60s, and that's workable for the 49ers over the course of offseason and training camp. I do wonder if he's feeling physically better now. I do wonder if that's in the rearview mirror, and that's helped him find his stride, because I think that the way that the 49ers have talked about this offensive line and John Feliciano, they're just looking to spruce up the depth at this point. They're not looking to make a big change at one position like they had to do last year with Burford giving way to Feliciano.
Before I let you go, Khalil, not to be confused with Kalia Davis, who they get from the Texans, looks like a good depth piece. What did you think of that ad?
He's extremely athletic. He ran a 4.7 540 coming out of Nebraska a few years ago at over 300 pounds. I think he weighs about 315 now. So he's not huge. It's not a 330-pound piece that you put there in the middle. They were interested in Davon Godchaux from the Patriots, who is one of those 330-pound fire hydrants that you stick there in the middle to stop the run. But what they have here with Khalil Davis is a lot higher ceiling as far as pass rushing. Godchaux, not a pass rusher, the veteran tackle for the Patriots. He was a run stopper through and through. Somebody like Khalil Davis, who I immediately was able to text and talk with a coach on the Texans staff, who obviously there's a lot of connections between the Texans and the 49ers. He said that Khalil Davis is a really hard worker and he's stout in the middle. And that's the first thing I wanted to know, because I saw how explosive he was as an athlete, but I thought, okay, he's not 330 pounds. Maybe he can get pushed around a little bit in the run game, and that obviously would be a concern. But no, the coach told me that he was very, very stout, and that the Texans really, really liked his effort in the middle. And he was a guy that was getting snaps for them. Houston, just a deeper team along the defensive line, especially on the interior, than the 49ers, who lost Javon Hargrave in week 3 against the Rams. So it's a rotational piece. Nobody should act like this is a guy that's going to be getting 60 snaps a game. But for 10 to 20 snaps a game, which is exactly what the 49ers needed here, there's some true athletic upside. And they have seen a lot of value and a lot of success from D-line trades in the past, from Willis in 2020 to Menahu in 2021. That was from Houston as well, right? So I think that the 49ers have themselves some good potential value here.
Good stuff. Always great to talk to you, man. We look forward to seeing you soon, and we'll keep reading you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Welcome back, brother. See you in a couple hours.